Welcome back to The Things We Know. I'm Lisa Callahan.
And I'm Kari Morin. And we're here to talk today about time.
Time. Tick, tick,
Tick
tick,
tock,
tick,
tock.
tick, tick.
We both thought of that. Tock, tick tock. These are the days of our lives.
Like sands through a time, hourglass.
Hourglass. This topic is such a good one for Lisa and I, because whether or not we actually use the word time, something I really love about you, Lisa, is I enjoy every bit of time I spend with you or talking to you. And you are someone who just uses time well in terms of enjoyment, in terms of not sweating it, not wasting it. And I gravitate towards people like that because time has become a greater currency to me than money and other things, right? And I know, there's time, there's love, there's money, there's all these things that we need, but time feels precious and abundant sometimes, and other times, just like choice, opportunity. So I don't know what comes up for you with that word. And I know we have a lot of fun things to sort of bring up and look at in terms of songs about time, but just curious what you think of when I tell you how I admire your use of time.
Well, I appreciate the admiration. And like anything, when somebody admires something about somebody else, typically that person doesn't see it because it just is what it is. The first thing that makes me laugh is that I hate to be late. And I rarely, if ever, am. And yet I do. That is one of the things that I get anxious about occasionally, is if I feel like we're going to be late. And I've done this my entire life. Darren and I have been together for 35 years. And Darren's favorite thing to say is, we're the Callahans, we're never late.
Oh, I love that.
That's true.
That's like Game of Thrones. The Lannisters pay their debts. The Callahans are never late.
We're the Callahans, we're never late. And literally, sometimes I have to say that out loud. Like if we're going somewhere and I could feel it in my body, like, oh, I'm getting anxious. And I'll just say, we're the Callahans, we're never late. And for the most part, it's true. Like luckily, sometimes you hear that about partners, right? One is terminally late and one isn't. I am so about being on time that even when I have friends that I know are always late. And so in my head, I think, well, just go 15 minutes later. Cause nope, can't do it. If I say I'm going to be there at 5, I'm going to be there at 5. Like I am always on time. So that's the first thing that strikes me. Yeah. I mean, the other thing for me is, you say I use time well. It's very important to me to have downtime. And you guys have heard us talk about it. We'll be doing a deeper dive here at some point around human design. But as my human design of a manifester, that's one of the things that's really important is downtime. A generator, someone that can go. Charlotte is a manifesting generator. She can go. I can't. I've always loved naps. I've always loved time at the pool. And yet society has still gotten its grip on me occasionally. And I will feel, quote unquote, bad when on my day off, which happens to be in the middle of the week, I'm at the pool and I'm like, oh, I should probably be doing something. And I'm like, no, this is my goddamn day off. Like,
yeah.
But I have to have these conversations sometimes out loud with myself. It's not just a internal thing. Like I have to physically say, no, this is your day off. You are allowed to sit at the pool.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. And we're a little loose on this topic today because we have a lot of places we could go with it. And it just reminds me also about another topic we will get to at some point, which is boundaries, and how, your relationship to time will tell you how good or bad your boundaries are, because you might have a lot of intentions around how you want to spend your time. And if you're constantly frustrated about how it went, as a coach or a parent or a friend, I might say, well, let's look at the boundaries you put around it. I am someone who, I was raised by a Marine, and he liked to raise his kids on Lombardi time. Like he heard, is it Vince Lombardi?
Like football, sure. Like the coach. He
heard him speak at some leadership event once, and he talked about the 15-minute cushion. And that became one of my dad's crown parenting jewels, right? Was Lombardi time, which, my dad was always early for things, because if you're early, you're never going to be late. And you have a 15-minute cushion. So if we came home on time, let's say the curfew was midnight and we came home at midnight, he'd say, what happened? And we're like, what? I'm home on time. You used your cushion. What happened? Because to him, you were late if you were at that time,
So even though your
unless you had used.
curfew was at midnight, you
Yes.
were really supposed to be home at
You weren't in
45?
trouble, but you were supposed to tell him what happened with your 15-minute cushion. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So we have to quickly come up with something that we didn't. We stopped it. We went through the drive-through. I don't know. I don't know if that would have been legit, but definitely raised us to be that way. My brother really took that to heart. During, in those years, we're old enough to say those years before when you could actually meet someone's plane and go past security. Whenever we got off a plane, my dad's face was the first one we saw, always big smile. Even when Brendan and I were like dating and engaged, like we got and there he was. So that's my brother. He would, if he had to pick up his boss, he'd be circling early to be sure he was there. Yes. And there is that part of me that was raised to be that way, that would love to be that way. And then I had 3 kids, dogs, that at some point I was like, it drives me nuts. I can't get rid of the part of me that would just love to be early and on time. And when I can be, I will. But then there's either traffic or there's kids or dogs. The one like usually has to do with poop, right? Like we're trying to get out the door and someone has to poo, or someone did poop, or we stepped in poop, right? Like at a certain point, I had to sort of give up the ghost on that and say, we're just going to be there when we get there. But I've really learned to get us started sooner.
There you go.
Because I don't like that. I don't like for people to like roll their eyes and assume we're going to be late. And, in some cases, especially the group of friends that I have to get on a freeway to see, I think they give me some grace knowing that there might be traffic, but I end up leaving way earlier just because I don't want that feeling.
I mean, I would have never in a million years thought of you as somebody who worries about being late, because I don't think I've ever run into that with you at all.
But me worrying about it, or
no, you ever being late?
Well, yeah, I could remind you of me taking forever to get over to your place, but yeah, I mean, there are things that happen in my life that I can't control, so it's just what's going on behind the scenes. And as I've gotten older, I've let it go, but definitely, I'm not an anxious person, but I can be anxious about being late.
Yeah, me
too.
To
me, there's a lot of judgment in it. So yeah, but when I was thinking about time, something you and I have said already on this pod a few times is I think one of the reasons we're such good friends is we both really know how to have a good time. Like we both really highly prioritize it, right?
Yes.
So
as I take a sip of wine.
Yes. So we will both work hard, do our best, and both of us will like have an understanding without even saying it. Like we have presented at events together where we had to be places on time. We had to be ready at a certain time. We helped each other with that, be here, be there. I got your breakfast. Let's do this. But basically we do it all because we know we're going to get to this time later where we're going to go have a celebratory drink in the bar. We're going to go meet out by the pool. To us, all those things are great and wonderful because we also have that built in. And I think I manifested friends like you, I really just to have people that are ready to relax and chill, celebrate, not over talk about it, not overthink about it, just really kind of giggle and move on and kind of think about the next thing. And I love that about you.
Is it work hard, play hard?
I think so. I think we work medium, play hard.
Okay, I agree. Work medium, play hard. That feels right.
I think that we're lucky that we've both found ourselves in a career that doesn't feel super hard for us. Obviously we take it seriously. That's a different thing, but I don't think we're coming out of it exhausted or depleted or anything. If anything, we come out with a lot of insight or a lot of laughter or a lot of whoa, with things to share energetically with each other. So
but let's presence the fact that from the outside, that might not feel true, right? We both have jobs. We both have private practices, and now we're running the pod. So, I mean, that's work. I don't think of it as hard work, but we work hard.
No, you're right. You're right. That's true.
Yeah.
And this is a definition that's actually a big, and it does relate to time. So I'll share it. It's a big conversation in my family right now, the family that I have with Brendan, in that we're of the generation, right? That you're supposed to work hard to achieve anything you want. It really comes as a reward for working hard. Would you say that's true about our generation? You work hard. And the way that is translated and the way Brendan and I accidentally, especially like during COVID, I remember thinking we are not making adulting look fun, because now that they're around, they're old enough to know what we do and they're around all the time. They're seeing how much we work. Right.
Yeah.
And we happen to love our work, and we both can trend to be, kind of workaholics, or people who are perfectionists or trying to do things well and learn it. But also, Brendan works in a hospital system and they're super short staffed and stretched. So they were seeing Brendan work around the clock.
Yeah.
And they were seeing me like work for HCI, run my business, and these things. So I will say we're having this conversation now with my oldest, who's at college taking 19 credits and pushing himself to the limit with no sleep. And then having a conversation about him studying abroad and saying, well, I don't know, it seems like a vacation. I'd probably only be able to take 3 classes there. And me saying to him, let's have a conversation about why that sounds easy to you, or not a good use of time, or a waste of time is the actual words he used. What if that time is meant to be about receiving and exposing yourself to a new, culture and expanding your horizons and learning, and exploring and all those things, right? Why does it have to be a bunch of time logged studying new things and working hard and like pushing it to the brink? And then I realized, oh, he got that example from us. So it's a really good conversation for us all to have, and to step back and say, how are we using our time and filling it in a way that isn't good for us?
And I hate to keep, we got to get the human design episode up sooner rather than later, because we keep referencing it, or I keep referencing it, and you might not know what it is. But that's interesting, since I know you just shared with me that Peter's a manifestor like me. And so is Darren, so is Liam, my son. And
so is Miles, my youngest.
And Miles, right. And so, but what's interesting, the difference in Peter and Liam is fascinating. I need to find out what his authority is, because Darren will kind of get on his case. And I think this goes back to what you just said about how we grew up. Darren is literally always doing, and I am not speaking out of turn, Darren, I know you're listening, but that like, when I was your age, I had 2 jobs, and I was going to school, and I was playing in a band, and I was like, oh my God. And you walked uphill both ways in the snow. Yes, we know. And I see Liam more like me, like he really prioritizes downtime, and yet he's working 2 jobs and he's going to school full time, but he needs time to create his art and that sort of thing. And so I think he aligns more with me as a manifestor than Darren, if that makes sense. Anyways, yeah. I think it's interesting, even though they both have the same human design and they're the same age and they're both in college, how differently. So I think it goes to the societal aspect, right? Yeah. The programming that we get regardless of how we were born.
Yes. And by the way, I am guilty of saying, before I studied abroad, I worked 3 jobs that summer. And he brought that up, like, oh, and I don't have 3 jobs lined up. And I thought, oh, I love the ways our kids are showing me that I'm giving mixed messages, because it gives me an opportunity to correct,
right?
Not just my message, but the more important lesson that they always take is our example, right? So how are we using time? Which gets me into time management, right? Because we work, for a company that really likes to teach time blocking. Mm-hmm. Do you do time blocking?
No.
Okay. So time blocking, if you don't know what that is, and you all could Google it if you want, if you're listening, time blocking, I think, works for a lot of people who are just kind of feeling chaotic, and they always feel like they never have enough time. And then they resist it because it feels too restrictive. And the wonderful reward of it is, once you time block, and I'll explain what it is in a second, suddenly you feel like you have more time.
Yes.
But so time blocking allows you to take, let's say you had a little index card for every little thing in your life that you're responsible for, everything you need to do, want to do, have to do. And you put each one on a different, this is how I kind of take people through it if they're tactile, on a different card. And then you put them in piles of things that sort of go together under one, like one thing might be house management. One thing might be marketing for your business. Another thing might be, your correspondences. I don't know. I'm just, laundry, whatever that is. So you have these things grouped, or maybe one is, your creative outlet. So you have them grouped, and then you look at your week and you kind of take a block of time. And during that time, you're doing that, like that umbrella topic, and all those things fall under it. And you turn off your phone and you don't do anything else. That's what you do during that time. So if you only do laundry 1 or 2 days a week, it's only during that time. And so it doesn't distract you the rest of the week Do you think, am I describing this okay? I can't
Yeah,
tell.
yeah, no. I
Okay,
mean,
so
it's a
yeah.
more in-depth way than I think of it. So that's interesting. I like the way you're describing it.
So for me, it really helped when I had little kids and
Mm.
I had a full-time job, and I was also learning a lot about health and nutrition when I was first becoming a coach, because I started with health coaching. And I had to figure that out. Like, there was a certain time, and it was the wee hours of the morning, where I was actually listening into modules and doing my classes and participating in calls. And then I, obviously had my work hours that's sort of designed for me. And then I had to figure out the whole time blocking with all the other shit, right? Like my kids' stuff
Right.
and all of that. So I resisted it until I did it. And then, oh my gosh, it was such a gift to me, because as so many working moms, especially the moms who work outside the house, have gone through, you're thinking about your kids when you're at work, and you're feeling like a bad mom because of stupid messages out there. And then when you're with your kids, you're feeling really like distracted by work, or maybe you want to do work, or you're guilty about work, something, right? But this allowed me to give things my full focus. So for me, time, if you have a good relationship with time, it is a huge boost to how you pay attention to things. And when you pay attention to things, you're going to have a lot more satisfaction and interaction and depth with it. So that's what that taught me, right? So like this whole time management thing became, instead of this, like, I don't know, organizational sounding dorky thing, it became a gift to me, because it allowed me to realize, like, I can create the time that I want if I can harness and put the things I have to do into a time bubble that I only have to do these certain times a week. And then I actually enjoyed them more.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. I think time became really interesting to me when I did become an entrepreneur. Again, we both have jobs, part-time jobs, but then I have my own private practice. And what I noticed, and I coach the students around all the time, is as an entrepreneur, you don't have a close sign. You don't have a door that you close and lock. Like, there is an aspect of you're always thinking about what you want to do in your business. And so I struggled with it, especially when for the first 5 years, well, I'm going to say first 4 years we lived here, because we're at our old apartment, and I'm back doing it now, I work in my bedroom. And but on our 5th year there, Liam moved out, Charlotte moved into his room, and so I moved into the loft. And so for 1 year, I would be done with work at 4. I would close the computer and I was going downstairs. I didn't have, whereas now, much like in my old place, I'm always by my computer. So I could come in at 8 o'clock and do something. And that's really not good. And so my first step that I have gotten really good at is Saturdays, I'm done with work. Doesn't mean I stop thinking about it, but if I will, again, I guess I have to talk to myself out loud, which people do tell me I do all the time. Are you talking to me or yourself? I'm mostly talking to myself. But I have to say, like, no, you're not doing that till Monday, even if something really great comes up.
Yeah.
Now, that, and again, we're both up at the same time, but what is really cracks me up is it takes me about 3 hours to do an hour-long workout, because I get my best ideas in the middle of my workout, and I'll like text you or I'll put a post up. And so there's where a beautiful example of time blocking isn't working for me, because I'm not doing it. I should just do my workout and then go do the other stuff. But I get these ideas and I just like jump to it.
Well, I think the introduction of cell phones has like really fucked up everybody's time.
Yes.
Like we hear about this all the time, right? Just scrolling, or the suck up. Like we can say that as parents, we're guilty of it. Our generation didn't have cell phones. So in real time, we're trying to learn how to manage the time suck. Because we were latchkey kids who got to watch MTV when no one was supervising us, or we snuck watching Three's Company and Love Boat and Fantasy Island. So like we were just made for this cell phone shit, right? Like we were just made for this, like everything's right here. So for us, I think, like that's a real conversation to have and to be aware of with our kids, like how you're spending time. I don't really love the concept of wasting time, because to me, just for me, maybe it's very associated with judgment and like lost opportunities and all that. And when in my former career, because I have a background in education, with students I would work with, I would say there's really no such thing as a waste of your time if you're learning you don't like something. right?
Ooh, I love that.
Because if you're really like, oh God, this speaker or this teacher or this class sucks, you're learning about yourself. And you're going to learn how to avoid opportunities like this in the future, or you're going to learn how to speak up, or you're going to learn how to ask questions. Like, discomfort is a great teacher. And boredom, I think, breeds ingenuity. Like, it breeds, like, it leads to other things. And so that's the problem with all the stuff being fed to us, and like that kind of time suck. It does sort of turn off the things that get us going, this sucks, this is a waste of my time. Because if we don't know that we're wasting our time, we'll just kind of go, oh, it's time to make this, it's time for dinner. So I think this has been such an interesting time in the world to be thinking about that, because I don't know, like, if you that's a self-critical thing. Did I waste my time? Or was that a waste of time? Did I waste my time? I didn't get anything done today. How did you spend your time? Did you? And I think as coaches, we're really good at helping people right away, especially when we're coaching, these students that we coach at our other job, where they come in and they're like, I haven't done anything.
Is that true?
Like, is that true? And also, well, what can we celebrate?
Right.
Like, what's going well? And all of a sudden you get something else and you're like, that doesn't sound like a waste of time. That sounds like you spent your time exactly where you needed to spend it. And if you did scroll, was that good for you? Did you need some neutral time? If you did binge watch something, was that bad? If you did eat a whole bunch, what is that trying to tell you? So again, kind of like you're learning about yourself.
It's also, what's the positive intention behind whatever you're doing, right? And so another thing for me around time management is, I used to think of myself, and I run up against this with every human I talk to, it seems like, I wish I didn't procrastinate. Maybe you are a procrastinator and you wait till the last minute because you're scared of something. And so there's some fear-based there. Okay, great. Now you know that. And how would you like to be experiencing it different? For me, I decided to stop saying I was a procrastinator when I really took a step back and looked at how I have always lived my life. And I don't really think about it in childhood, but I think about it as far back as college and how I would study for tests. I always studied the night before. I always did my papers the night before. And so I stopped saying I was a procrastinator and instead said, this is my work style, and once I said that, there was no judgment. This is just how I work. Now, I will admit there have been times it has not served me to work at that tight of a timeline. But even then I've just been like, okay, now I know what I want to do differently next time. But I just don't own procrastination as a thing, as a judgment, because it just is how I work, and that's okay.
I know. I love that about you. And you've helped me kind of rethink that about myself. I put you in a category of someone who, if you had no preparation, and somebody told me this once when they asked me to speak last minute to fill in for someone, and I was about to say no, and someone said, say yes, always say yes. And I did. And I had like a minute of, oh shit. And it was fine. I went up and I did a story. I put you in the category that you'd be someone, and I used to run events like that. I could throw you on stage and you'd do something and people would love it. So I do think you have, and I think it goes into that, like, you don't get anxious. You don't overthink things.
Right.
And you're really personable and warm and funny. People like you.
That's a throwback, everyone, from like a year and a half ago, when I accidentally on stage, when somebody said, what's your success? I said, I don't know. People just like me.
They do.
But I was like, why the hell did I just say that?
You had the microphone and you went, like me. And then you could like me. It came out of your mouth and you're like, well, but I do think, the way you walk through the world makes it so that you can procrastinate. I think somebody who has a lot of self judgment and is stuck in their head and maybe hasn't done the work around letting shit go, procrastinating might cause them stomach acid and all kinds of stuff that would not be worth putting things off for.
Good point. Yes. Thank you for reflecting that, because I think you're exactly right. Yeah.
And I think I've grown into that. I used to be someone who got really stressed about doing things perfectly, and I let that shit go. And, now I always say, like, I think I'm a B+ speaker. I could probably be an A+ if I put some time into it. Maybe I'll do that sometime.
Well, we even call ourselves lazy entrepreneurs,
We
which is
do.
again hysterical because probably on the face of it, we don't look that way, but that's how we feel because we
We
allow for
do.
time for fun. I mean, I think again, the archetype of the entrepreneur is just the hustle, hustle, hustle.
Grind, grind.
Right. And we just, again, don't live there. It's not scalable for us to be like that.
No, no. And luckily we found a way to allow ourselves to sleep, to sip, to
All the
giggle,
things.
and still do something we're hoping is worthwhile. So
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. Way to use our time.
Woo! I have
Yeah.
one other thought about time. And this wasn't on sort of the
Yeah.
outline, but I mean, for me, it's also, well, maybe this is on the outline and it'll lead into what you want to talk about. Time is finite, right? And I am a big proponent of yesterday is gone and tomorrow doesn't exist. And having lost my mom the way I did, that was proven to me. And so I like to have goals. I like to future pace into success and own that and see, I mean, Kari and I have big ideas for this pod and where this is going to go. I love all that. And all I've got is this moment in time. I don't have yesterday and I don't have tomorrow. And so that is one of the things that helps me be really present and enjoy every moment. I really love when I have an experience and I know in that moment that this experience is awesome.
Oh, I know. I love that. And to belabor that, like, that's why it's also good to have shitty moments, because it really does help you appreciate, like, it's good to be bored to understand what really lights you up. It's really good to, maybe not choose wisely, which is one of my family's favorite lines. It turns out it's used a lot. I don't know where it originated, but we saw it first on, Avatar Last Airbender. It's a animated show. Yeah.
Yep.
So we say that all the time. Choose wisely. But if you don't, there's something valuable in that, because it teaches you how to choose wisely the next time about how to spend your time. I mean, I think we've all watched movies or spent time with people who drain your energy, where you're like, never getting that 2 hours of my life back. Yeah. And it does teach you how to be kind of precious with your time and value your time and be unapologetic. Like, I am choosing to spend my time this way. I'm choosing, you and I choose a lot to just let's not talk about the pod right now. Let's just laugh about this other thing, or let's just get some sleep and I'll talk to you tomorrow. We choose that and really unapologetically, which I love.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about just the concept of quality versus quantity time. And Lisa and I were recently texting, because we do this a lot. We text a lot anyway, but about how, there's this idea about how, well, anyway, that we don't need to talk about our damn kids all the time, our kids who we love, but we don't need to. But this is where it comes up a lot for me, this idea of quality time versus quantity. And we love you, kids. I'm just meant, we don't mean to embarrass you and bring you up all the time. But when it comes to kids and parenting and quality time versus quantity time, everybody thinks that I shouldn't say everyone. You and I both know, and we've probably been guilty of it ourselves, a lot of parents have this idea about how to spend quality time. And I see it with people in relationships too, or friends. Like, people will accidentally project what they think is quality time and when it's going to happen. But the way it just gets so humbling for us as humans is, as parents, if we were to do that, we are not at all taking into account that, like, kids have their own weather system, right? So you might plan quality time, their window is shut. Right. That is not going to happen. They're like looking up at their phones. I mean, I one of my very favorite snippets I've ever seen was, I think Tina Fey was on Jimmy Fallon. Oh yeah. Where she's like, having a teenage girl is like having an office crutch, where you're thinking about them way more than they're thinking of you. And you come in and you're like, some of us were going to watch a movie. And she just looks up at you like, what?
Yes, I love that.
You're probably busy. Okay. So this idea of quality time, and they are not here for it, right? Right. So what I've learned is, and I'm super lucky, as are you. I know not everyone has this opportunity, but when I started working from home, because I've always been working, but sometimes I was working out of the house and sometimes I wasn't. When I started working from home, just the fact that, and I got to give my friend Cindy props, because so long ago, she is a preschool teacher. So long ago, she said she was going to go part-time when her kids got in high school. And I thought, why would you do that? They won't want to be around you then. She's like, that's when they'll need me around. And
Yeah.
she was so right. She was a child development major, so I should have really been listening, but I didn't have kids yet. So I thought that was just dumb. And turns out she's brilliant, because so true. Like, the quantity of time that I was around meant that when they were in the mood, and if I was flexible enough, I was there for it. The time was there. If I had the opportunity to drive their carpool, sometimes I had to pay someone to do it because I was working. But if I had the opportunity, I was present for things that came up, whether or not they wanted me to be or not. So it is interesting that, like, we always want quality. We cannot control that.
Right.
Sometimes quantity of time, which might include some of what we might think is wasted or boring, is where some of the quality will just happen because the window is there. I don't know if you agree, if you have the same experience.
Yeah, yes, I think you're exactly right. I mean, when I would drive back when I lived in Chicago and Charlotte was an Irish dancer, we had to drive about an hour to class. And when we used to take a little girl named Anna, she's not little anymore because she's Charlotte's age, but and to listen to those two talk on the way there, and even more so on the way home about what had happened at class, like, it was enlightening, and same thing, just, I always did love, my kids have never taken the bus just because of the nature of where we've lived. And so those car rides home, and also each kid's different, right? Liam loved to talk the minute he got in the car. Charlotte needs a hot minute, so, so it's being there at whatever time. Liam's going to talk immediately. Charlotte needs 15 minutes. Great. I'm there for all of it. So whenever one of them's ready, I'm good to go.
Right. And it was the time. It was the gift of time, which, I believe that if they don't already, will look back and really appreciate. It's the other thing I wanted to say about time is, I don't know how you guys plan your vacations. You planned an amazing, so I don't know how you'd answer this, because I observed you going to New York and you guys were so good about slotting in all that time and making sure to hit the moments that the kids really wanted. And so a place like New York maybe doesn't apply to this, but in my husband's family, for example, they're all type A people. So they need and love a vacation where they don't plan a lot, but they're just in a beautiful place. Okay. And everybody just gets to do what they want. And my sister-in-law, Adrienne, who's type A sort of in a different way, but she's just like that person who can, like, she could run the world. She's just really good at scheduling stuff. We all, when our kids were really little, we just had, like, Peter was one. I was pregnant with Griffin. Declan was one. We were in Kauai with Brendan's family. And she's like, I rented a kayak. And then there's these helicopter tours. And Brendan's family was like holding their books, looking at her like they were going to cry. Like, they just were maybe going to snorkel, maybe going to read their books. And we were laughing. We're like, these type A people on vacation need to, like, have nothing planned. Maybe like some fish for dinner, like,
that's interesting, because I would have thought the exact opposite, that they would want plans, but that's interesting. That's actually where they give themselves permission.
Yes. To do
not
nothing.
Do anything. That's fascinating.
And it's super true of my husband. Like, he is super programmed in his regular life and during the day. I mean, we were in Maui and, when was that? 2020. Oh my gosh. And obviously sometimes he would book, like, surf lessons with he and the boys, or golf, or scuba diving, but mainly he just freaking needed and loved and, like, kind of came back to life for us after all the stuff he had been managing in the hospital and being separated from us during that quarantine.
Right.
Because we had all this unstructured time. He needed unstructured time to, like, find himself again and kind of come back to equilibrium with a book and the sunshine and the sound of the ocean. I mean, obviously that sounds really lovely. And at Lisa knows I worked my ass off to make that happen. Yes. But yeah, like, that's what I learned in that moment with my family when I was looking at Adrienne going, why did you book all that stuff for them? They're going to throw up. And then she and I laugh about that to this day. Like, don't overschedule those people, because they are already overscheduled. Yeah.
I guess the answer for me, I was thinking about is, so New York, probably, I think we did New York the same way we do all of our trips, and we plan on going to Ireland in 2024. And I think it'll be the same way. We had an anchor for each day, like something we were doing each day, and then kind of built it. And New York's easy to do this, right? Like, we went to Battery Park and just Statue of Liberty. So we also hit the World Trade Center that day. So we kind of had these anchors of things that we were doing, and then built the day around it because New York's so ginormous and it was the kids' first time and we wanted to do all that. And we live in LA. So we have a lot of sun and sand. I mean, we could go do that anytime we want. So we tend to now go to cities and experiences more than just sit back. When I lived in Chicago, if I was going to LA, or I mean, the 2 times we came out here, or Florida or wherever where it was sunny, like, yes, there had to be pool time during the day and we could do stuff at night. It's changed just because of where we live. But ultimately I plan a thing and then we kind of build the day around it. So there's that flexibility. If we don't want to do something, we're not tied to it. We had something every day we were tied to, and then the rest was sort of, organic, which was lovely.
Note to Peter, if you're listening, have Lisa plan our next trip. Peter he will always say that because he has friends who really structure their trips. He went to DC with 2 friends after Constitution team, and he has friends who will really they plan every minute. And then he has friends who are like, no, and then he gets a little anxious, like, but we didn't do the thing. And he says, Mom, I feel like you're right in the middle there. And I think he would say you're even better at it, where we plan some things and we let the rest of it unfold.
Yeah.
That's ideal. Right.
I think so, but I think it's for everyone.
I think it's ideal because again, it goes back to the expectations. Like if you have all these things and then somebody poops or, something happens and you get off, then all of a sudden you're just seeing the day just kind of, piss away versus we got time for this. And then we might explore this and who knows what kind of mood we'll be in. In our case, we could get completely waylaid by a seizure. We need to have some things where we can get the deposits back. We need to have some flexibility. But it's also taught us how to just kind of shift and keep things flowing. And that's always been my goal, because it's the cue I take from Griffin is he doesn't want things to stop. So we had a camping trip to the gorge planned. He had a seizure. I said to the 2 boys, you guys go ahead, find the water hole, go swimming, get our camp set up. We'll meet you there. So we will always kind of fast pivot and use our time that way. What's the best way to use this time? You guys go ahead, or some of us will go ahead, or we'll shift it to tomorrow, or I kind of like that time can be played with like a recipe, right?
Yeah.
It's just it's going to look a little different, but we're still going to use all these ingredients.
Well, but you just said we have all the time in the world, and I said time is finite, and both are true. But this kind of this whole topic got prompted by a text you had with your friend. And I think that's fascinating. So I'm going to let you share that because I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my friend Nia, who is one of my I have so many brilliant friends like you. She's freaking smart and
attracts
yes. And you'd love her. She's from Ireland, actually.
I know,
but
her name.
She said it's 4,000 Weeks is the book. And what's interesting, okay, we all have these moments in our life where I need to get organized, or I want to manage my time better. I want to do this better. So she got a book about time management. She's an attorney. She's got 2 really, pretty busy jobs. And so I'm going to guess she just was looking at how to parent her kids around that and maybe, improve stuff for herself. And she said, I got it because it was about time management, but really the message is you have a limited amount of time on earth, average of 4,000 weeks. So make the most of it. Right. And what I love about her, and thank God, I mean, every friend group should have a Niev, but she is often the one who will take our temperature, send a text out and be like, are we having enough fun? Or if we're gonna have hobbies, let's get them together. Are we spending enough time together? Are we gonna, she's the last of this group of friends to turn 50. And so she keeps saying, does everyone want to go to Vegas? And I was like, who cares? Let's just all go somewhere together and have that time. She's really good at making sure that we have quantity of time together. She's probably the reason that group continues. I mean, everyone's so great about it, but I feel like she's the one, no matter how busy she is, will make the time to touch base with people and say, let's just have coffee. Let's just go walking,
did she read this book before this sort of experience where you're experiencing her in this way?
She just told me about it. So she just told me about this today.
And yet she was naturally already like that then.
Yeah.
So this book was probably validating in some ways to her.
Well, yes, but she also had the oh shit, we only have so much time because it is finite. I mean, I do parent and I coach with the idea that like, hey, everything's repairable. There's always
Yeah.
time. There's also that part of me that like, I also know time is not promised to us. I've lost
Right.
my father. You've lost your parents. We are really, really lucky to get any time we have. And that I just resist the idea to make the most of it or it'll suck. Right.
Oh yeah.
I move into, it's not all going to feel fun, but it's all going to be worth something if you want it to. And don't like stress about wasting time or else you're wasting more time.
Right.
So
Right.
I think for me, it's a little bit of, I mean, you and I both, we won't shop for a bargain if it
Mm-mm.
means a ton of our time. Our time is as valuable to us. That's why, time is a currency,
Yep.
which,
Time is money.
yeah, time is money and time is precious. I think
Mhm.
about that a lot with Liam and Peter moved out and the time we get with them. I think a lot more protectively about my calendar because I think, oh, he's only gonna be home 10 days, between now and November. So I want to be sure that I have enough time around here in case he is around, even though he'll probably spend, a lot of it sleeping or hanging out with friends. But I just, again, that have that quantity of time near each other to have some quality time. So I do think of that way. I know it's precious and I also don't want people to sweat it.
Yeah. The last sort of cliche is time heals all wounds.
Yeah, I do think that.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't know about all wounds, but I do think things get better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have. I'm trying to think. I mean, normally I think of that around friendships and experiences and fights and things like that. And I don't have anyone that I don't talk to because of that. So I that doesn't land for me. So I guess I attach it to grief, and I think, a loss never goes away. It changes you. And at the same time, it does shift, right? You have more good days than bad days and more happy moments than sad moments. And so again, going back to pod number 3, right? Feel your feelings. And that's, I think, the way time heals is just allowing it to flow through you.
Oh, I like that. I was thinking about breakups
Mm,
when like time heals. I mean, if you have a child who gets injured, like unfortunately I have a lot, but
yeah.
have your kids been injured? They have, right?
I mean, Liam's
Yeah.
got his peanut allergy.
Sure. So,
yeah.
okay. When you see like a physical injury and you see how fast it heals, it
Mhm.
reminds you of that. But then it also reminds you of the emotional stuff. I think
Yeah.
big, bad heartache stuff I've been through. And wow, it doesn't hurt right now the way it did even, a couple years before it did. Right. So
Right.
I think about that. And, what occurs to me recently too, with this other thing about this pod being for women of a certain age is I remember thinking my aunts and my mom didn't care as much about the things that were such a big deal to me. And they would just kind of, sip their drink and be like, you won't be sad forever. And I was like, they don't care. But I think it's because they had enough years to go like, this will be such small shit to you someday, sister.
Yeah.
Just wait. And I couldn't see it as anything other than they weren't as mad as I was or as sad as I was or as upset. And I really love being on this side of things where I don't feel the drama for it. I have some sympathy. I have some empathy. I've been there. It sucks to be dumped, or it sucks to like have somebody, you think you're meant to be with, be in a shitty place and they can't figure it out. Right. Like all those things hurt so bad and you think you're never going to get over it. And time is such a great response for it. Right. Like, as it helps you, whether you want to or not, it really does allow you to learn and grow in a way that, I mean, I was just listening to Cheryl Strayed's talk about this with, Tiny Beautiful Things, that series that's out, that and Wild both kind of, reflect that she lost her mom and it was devastating to her. And she didn't think she could live without her. She didn't think she could live on an earth without her. I remember, I'm sure you had this feeling. I remember thinking, I don't want to live in a world without my dad. And yet time does show you do. And you can, and you reinvent yourself, or you find a new way to really grow, and you find those things. Like time gives you the gift of figuring out what you need to figure out.
Yeah. So
I agree. I do think it heals.
Yeah, I agree. In different ways, different experiences heal different ways for sure. So we couldn't really come up with just one song because there's a bazillion songs around time. You want to list some of your favorites, and then I'll share one that's probably not
Yes.
yet on the greatest hits of time.
But it should be. Yes. Let's come to
Absolutely
yours
should be.
last, because when I
Okay.
was watching Lisa, we always spend a little time preparing for these. And I was watching Lisa listen to this special song by someone she adores, and the sweetest look on your face. I wish I had captured it. But I will say some of the ones that are listed on the greatest songs of all time that people would probably agree with me are also some of my favorites. Good Riddance by Green
What
Day.
song? Oh, by Green Day. Okay. I was like, I don't know what
I
song
hope
that
you had the
is.
time of your life. Yeah.
Of course,
Another
of
turning
course.
point, a fork stuck in the road. Oh, I definitely have a memory. You know, we could do a pod about how music is a time machine, but that song just came on the radio because we are of that age, right? Came on the radio right when Brendan and I were leaving Nashville with our dearest friends who like helped us pack up, and they made gumbo, and we were all just having a great time, and they like crying and giving us hugs, and we get in our little moving truck and we go to pull out, and that song comes on, another turning point.
Oh my God.
Stuck in the road. And I was like,
yeah.
Like, and that was literally just on the radio. So
I
yeah.
love that. Beautiful.
Anyway,
song.
and then there's also, you know, Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper, Time Is on My Side. We were laughing about Cher. If I could turn back time.
Oh,
I do like that, like because I'm a big fan of fiction that's like time travel stuff.
yeah,
I love the
Time
idea.
Traveler's Wife is my favorite.
Me
book.
too. Yeah, I love that. It was one of my absolute favorite books, but actually another time one that we both like was The Night Circus. That was interesting.
Yes.
What a time travel
Love
into.
Night Circus.
But no, Time Traveler's Wife, I loved it. I loved the book more than the movie, that's for sure. But
I did not watch the movie because I love the book so much. And Audrey Niefenegger is from Chicago. Yeah, I've heard.
But the one that and there's a lot of them, but the one, and also, I'm sorry, gotta love, you know, with our 80s reference, Culture Club. Time makes the lovers feel. I love that one. Time won't give me time. But what I landed on was Eagles. Yeah. Not the Eagles.
Not the Eagles. I said, make sure you don't call them the Eagles. It's Eagles.
Take it to the limit.
Oh, I love that
song. I love that. And the line that got burned into my heart in college that I've always thought of is, you can spend all your time making money. You can spend all your love making time. And that just brings me to that beautiful place around, you know, that little moment of like spending your love making time, that can last forever, right?
Yeah.
You can keep reliving that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we were going to go with Eagles song, and then it just hit me as soon as she said it. One of my favorite songs now of all time, honest to God, is by my very good and very longtime friend, David Poe. And he has an album out called Everyone Has a Camera. And this is called Time There Is Still. And what's great about it is the way he sings it. It's not there is still time. It's time there is still. And so the lyrics are, forward, always forward, never looking back. Time there is still to start again. Once we were children, once we were friends. And the thing that song, he and I've talked about it, and he wrote it a while ago, and his, I think at the time, his vision was sort of around climate change, and, you know, that we still have time, which I'm not sure we do, but at the time we thought we might still have time to fix it. But we both had a very, very dear friend pass. And so when the album came out, it actually took me there instead. And so what Kari was seeing was me listening to it and getting teared up.
It was
around that.
It was beautiful.
Sorry, now I'm getting teary. Because again, you don't know, we had a very dear friend die at 53 out of the blue. And again, that was that moment where I think we all just went, fuck, like it's not, yeah, my mom was 72, right? And that was too young, but also she was 72. Morgan was 53. And that was way too fucking soon. So totally. Yeah. So yes, please, everyone should listen to David Poe's album because it's amazing.
And it will be on our playlist.
Yes, you guys don't even know this, but we are curating a playlist and we will release it I think I'm thinking about episode 25. So you got a little time, but until then, you can listen to Everyone Has a Camera. I think it's everybody. Sorry, David, if you're listening.
I'm gonna
It.
pull it up as soon as we're done.
So good.
Beautiful. Well, as always, Thursdays are my favorite because I get to spend time with you and enjoying the way I walk and work and, you know, be in the world with people like you makes me feel like I'm pretty darn smart about how I spend my time. So
you spend your time very well.
Thank you.
We both do. We both do. And we're, I would say we're lucky, but we also have curated this. We have cultivated our life to live this way. And as with anything in this pod, we hope you'll take what you need, leave the rest. If this lands for you, awesome. You know, we say at the end of every one of these pods to come to our Facebook page and to our Instagram page. You know, I realized this the other day, our pages are public, so people can't just post on there, but we post a lot, and we'd love you to comment underneath those and tell us, you know, are you trying any of these things that we're saying? Is any of this landing? Some of you are great about it, and we really appreciate the feedback to hear that it's landing. We're going to be doing this whether it lands or not, but we hope that it's helping in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and if you have something we don't know, we always love to learn more and hear new perspectives. So whatever you want to add to the conversation, we're really interested.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to we have a bazillion topics, but we'd also like to know if there's something important that you would like to hear us talk about as well, because we'd be happy to do that. So,
Yay.
Well, thank you, Kari, for spending this time with me.
Thanks. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a gift. Cheers. Yeah.
Well, as always, everyone, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of The Things We Know, and we will be back next week. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.